Now, Elena's with us here on set. French politicians and the media still digesting, of course, the shock of the Toulouse shootings, and it's still on many of the front pages today, isn't it?
Yes, after suspending their campaigns, of course, last week in tribute to those who were killed in Toulouse, Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande started to stick the knife into each other over the subject of law and order after those shootings at the weekend. Le Figaro comes out all guns blazing this morning. They've got Sarkozy challenges Hollande over law and order as a headline, and their editorial says that the left is naive about security. Now, this is, of course, a traditionally right-wing kind of terrain, but François Hollande did make a bid to occupy it towards the end of last week by saying there was no reason to think he wouldn't be just as tough, if not tougher, on terrorists than the right have been. The Le Figaro, of course, thinks that there's no evidence to think that. They say the left is overly naive and idealistic about law and order. They say the socialists have voted against most of Sarkozy's law and order bills since he's been in power, so there's no reason to think that he'd be any better at preventing a terrorist attack than Sarkozy has been. Over at Libération, of course, they take a different view. Rather regal François Hollande waves to readers on the front page there. It's the final countdown, is their headline, with just 28 days to go, just 4 weeks until election day. Now, their editorial says, imagine if this terrorist atrocity had taken place under a left-wing government. Imagine how convenient that would be for the right. They'd be really laying in with questions like, how did the intelligence service manage to miss this guy? Why was he not followed after he came back from Afghanistan and Pakistan? How could he have accumulated such a cache of weapons? They say the left should be doing just what the right would do if this had happened under a socialist government, attacking the intelligence services on any possible oversight that they may have carried out.
It does seem to be, according to the papers anyway, a few questions to answer. We could underestimate it as saying for the intelligence services. It could be very embarrassing for Nicolas Sarkozy, couldn't it?
It could, of course. This is the danger of campaigning on this subject if you are Nicolas Sarkozy, is that this did happen under his watch, and thus, as a result, he could be held responsible for any failures of the intelligence services. So it doesn't necessarily look good for him. That's exactly what François Hollande's director of PR and communications, Manuel Valls, is saying in an interview he's given to Libération today. He's saying just that. How could this man not have been followed after he came back from Afghanistan? How did intelligence services manage to go so badly wrong? And he reckons this is just the cap of 10 years of a bad record of law and order from the Sarkozy presidency. He has statistics in there saying that assaults have gone up 31% apparently, and violent muggings by 28%. Law and order has, of course, been the trademark of the Sarkozy presidency. But according to him, at least, he's not actually doing as well as he says.
And more potential embarrassment for Nicolas Sarkozy, because the paper's now talking about one of his weak points, seen by many anyway, his friendships with the very rich.
Yes, there's a subject that's come up again and again, hasn't it? Sarkozy being called the president of the rich in this election campaign. And there's another potential scandal. This time it's about Patrice de Maistre. He's a wealth manager of France's richest woman, Liliane Bettencourt. That's what he's famous for anyway. But he was summoned by magistrates in Bordeaux at the weekend for investigation over whether or not he gave illegal donations to Sarkozy's 2007 election campaign. They're particularly interested in two cash withdrawals of €400,000 each that he made in January and February 2007, which they have reasons for suspecting went to the Sarkozy campaign. So that could be potentially rather very embarrassing. Now, the whole question of the rich and how much they should be taxed and how they should be cracked down on has become central to this campaign. Some bad news for those who want them taxed more in Le Parisien. They say a new EU law that was passed last week means that they now won't, if you are very rich and you leave France, you now won't have to pay taxes on your shares, whereas you used to have to rather. And L'Humanité also has been examining just exactly how much France's richest CEOs are earning. And some people do indeed seem to have done extremely well out of the Sarkozy presidency, as you might already have suspected. The Danone CEO, Franck Riboud, made €7.7 million last year, and L'Oréal's made €7.6 million. That's what the L'Humanité, of course, the left-wing paper, would like to see put a stop to.
Drop in the ocean. All right, Elena, thanks very much. There's Elena with the French newspaper review here on France 24. Let's remind you of the headlines then. President Abdoulaye Wade